minimum is that food is available for everyone.
There's clearly a sense that farming is tough. The low prices and the long hours.
And low income.
Of course, if you have a more diverse farm, you're more resilient. But it also has a cost to be diverse.
How does it work to get the eco payments?
It's pretty complicated.
What is sure is that the cap can have an effect, a huge effect.
My personal favorite, I prefer Taylor Swift. Hello and welcome to this special WWF podcast. I'm your host, Sedan Anlar, a Brussels-based journalist and podcast producer. Today we're here to talk about something that connects every one of us every single day. And one of my absolute favorite things in the world, food. Think about it, what you ate this morning, what's in your fridge right now, and what you'll pick up later at the shop. Every piece of food has been on a journey, from the soil of a farm through the hands of a farmer, across markets, processing sites, and supermarket shelves, until it finally lands on our plates. It's really easy to take that journey for granted, but behind it is a world of choices, pressures, and risks for farmers, for nature, and for all of us as consumers. In fact, across Europe, millions of farmers are working hard to produce food that's safe, healthy, and affordable. But they're doing so in a system where the natural resources they depend on, like soil, water, and pollinators, are under growing pressure. And as we've seen in the streets with the farmers' protests over the last few years, the economic stress of that system is boiling over. Climate change, biodiversity loss, and financial strain are reshaping what it means to farm today. And the cost of that stress is already staggering. Across the EU, extreme weather is costing farmers $28 billion every year. By mid-century, that figure could rise to 40 billion euros. That's not an abstract thing. It's the real price of droughts, floods, and late frosts that show up as empty shelves, higher prices, and stressed farm budgets. And here's something most people might not realize. Only about 20 to 30% of those losses are actually insured. The rest lands on farmers and you and me, the taxpayers, the consumers. That kind of pressure raises big questions, not just for farmers, but for all of us who eat. So today we're asking, what is good food? Who's really paying the cost of producing it? And how can the EU fix the recipe so that food production supports people, including farmers, and nature? To unpack these very, very easy questions, I'm joined by three people who sit right at the heart of the food system and who each bring a unique perspective on food, farming, and risk. Starting with Audrey Brossel, a farmer who has turned her land into a forest garden, cultivating over 80 species of edible trees, shrubs, and perennials using organic and agroecological practices. She's a nursery woman, an arborist, and trainer dedicated to regenerating land and local food systems. Then we have Mark Schottem, a data scientist specializing in climate risk and insurance, and a farmer with field crops. And last but not least, Annelies Smets, a food systems expert who spent years working on making healthy and sustainable food accessible, especially for those who often struggle to get it. She works on school meals, public procurement, and fair food production across Europe. Welcome all to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very nice to have you here. Before we dive into the conversation, I actually went out to the streets to get a sense of how people think of food, good food, what they think of it when they hear it, just so we can get beyond the headlines and policies. So I asked people in Brussels a simple question: what's good food to you? And here's what they said.
When I think about good food, the first thing comes to my mind is memories, I think. Good food that you have eaten with your mother or your family. It tastes always better than something that you make yourself. So I think the food goes together with the memories.
Good food for me is local food with local producers and have a tasty food. Where when I go to supermarkets, I try to see what is a good price for the good food, and I really check where the food is from, and for the meat, for the fish, and for the vegetables also.
I think it means something about family, like the childhood and nostalgia of the taste of childhood, or something like that. So it can be like sugary, it can be just fat, it can be anything, as long as it has like a memory or souvenir.
Taste. Taste. Yeah, I would say raw products, the more natural one, and yeah, it can be fat too. I mean, it doesn't have to be super healthy. I think fat is also healthy in a way we need it. It's about putting attention and creativity and love in what you are doing.
What do you think? I mean, everyone has their own take, their own answers. For some, it's flavor. For others, it's health. And for others, it's affordability. Are you surprised at all by what you heard?
Natural that people they relate first to themselves and the memories and the taste and this kind of thing, and maybe less the societal impact. Okay, when the first guy was talking about like a local, I think it's already going in the direction, like thinking, okay, what's the societal impact of the food?
I really like the answers. It's really beautiful how you see all these different aspects of food. And well, I'm an anthropologist myself, so I really liked the cultural aspect that was also underlined very often. And then also the local, the affordability that comes back doesn't surprise me at all. But I would like to add, maybe as someone working in well, for an NGO working on good food, then it might be a bit the system behind what people say. So the fact that you want to eat local food can only happen if you look at the whole supply chain of food. And there, I really think that the question of biodiversity, clean water, healthy soil, fertile soils is very important. But you have to link it to the farmer, an affordable income, a living income for the farmers, but that you will know more than I will. And not only the farmer, but also the consumers, the ones who are at the end of the food chain, and that are the ones that are paying the price for the food. Linking these elements all together, I think that is what good food should be about. And food should be, well, it's a right. We all should deserve proper food.
Yeah, it's almost like those are the invisible ingredients that put food on our plates. It's what happens behind it. And this is exactly what I was reflecting on when I was doing these interviews. First, I was surprised that a lot of people mentioned the emotional side of food, the memories, what you have with your family. And I don't know why I was not expecting that. I thought everyone would be like the taste and whatever is cheap. But you can really tell how much we care about it. And it's something that connects us all. We take care of each other through food and we connect through food. And then those invisible ingredients come to play as well, right? How does food get there? I mean, this is where your work comes in, right? Ensuring people, especially those who can't afford it, especially children who might just get one nutritious meal at school a day, have access to healthy food. Do you think we could better connect the idea of a good food with these hidden ingredients, like even water, the soil, and in a way that's fair to both farmers and consumers?
I think when you're talking about school food, I really think that there's a huge potential, because children, youngsters, they're the future. So if we start at school and if we make sure that we do not only look at what do they eat in a canteen, which is very important, of course, but if we also look at how do they learn about food, how does the school treat the whole governance, like how does the school look at birthday treatments, going to field visits. If you can all link these things to food, I think children, youngsters really learn what this is, this element of good food, and they can really make the better choices in the future. Yeah.
Mhm. And of course, I need to turn to you, Audrey, because you grow food. So as a farmer, what does good food mean to you?
I'm really convinced that a tasty food is a food that has been well produced, and that is what links all of this together. Um, the food from your childhood, which is tasty and which is well produced.
Mark, you're also a farmer. You manage 220 different crops on your farm, right? But you also professionally work with risk, data, and insurance. From your perspective, what does good food really depend on? Like, I'm not just asking nutritionally, but in terms of these systems, the hidden ingredients that we, invisible ingredients that we talk about that go into it behind the scenes.
I think if I'm speaking purely from an agricultural insurance perspective, people that are the most concerned about good food are probably health insurance. And for them, good food means healthy food, food that keep you healthy. But if we look, I think, a bit more in a broader system about the secret ingredient, I think we're all concerned, like as a society, and insurance is part of the society, is a way to share risk all together. And there, I mean, everything that goes about like damaging our environment, making us more vulnerable to extreme weather events, more vulnerable to pest outbreaks is a bad thing, basically. So good food is food that does not promote those risks and that keep our environment and us healthy and happy. So, and taste is of course, a very important step to keep us happy.
Even just from these first few minutes, we can tell that farming is tough, basically. And good food isn't only what's on the plate, but it's about where it comes from and whether the people growing it actually keep going and take those risks after year after year as the pressures build. So I actually wanted to get the public's perspective again on what they think of farming.
I would say that scale is one of the challenges. There are lots of independent farmers, and so because they don't have the right scale, it means their costs are high, and that eats into their profits. Another challenge, I would say, is the unpredictability of the weather. For example, we had a very dry and hot year this year, but last year, the first half of the year rained a lot, and so these things probably make it hard for them to plan their crops.
I think it has mostly to do with volatility. For example, main thing, the weather. But at the same time, you also have different prices. For example, wheat price can drastically go up and down throughout the year, so you never know what to expect. And lately, as we've seen a lot, there has been a lot of government intervention in fertilizers and so forth. I'm not too knowledgeable on this, but as what I could see, farmers aren't too happy about it.
He worked hard for a little bit money, so hard that, and ours is very, very long.
Mainly the kilometers that they need to travel to get access to different parts of the process.
So there's clearly a sense that farming is tough. I think people are aware of that, and it's full of uncertainty. Audrey, when you hear those answers, does that reflect your experience?
And low income.
That sounds about right.
Sounds perfect.
So you approve.
No lying.
I mean, I also have a foot in both worlds. I can easily compare. Yes, there is a difference in terms of income, a clear difference. And I mean, it's not like all farmers, they're like suffering. Of course, like there's like in all entrepreneurial sector, there are farmers that are doing well and other less well. But I think generally speaking, it's clearly a part of the population that lies on the lower end of the revenue spectrum in Europe. So it's clearly an issue.
And on top of that, these difficulties that we talked about, there's also there are also other growing pressures, climate events, and all the shocks that we need to deal with. And you already talked about the risks. So the EU's own data shows that drought alone now accounts for over half of farm-related climate risks. And without serious adaptation, average crop losses could rise by 40 to 60% by 2050. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of risk. How do we, I mean, Audrey, maybe I can start with you. How is climate change showing up in your work right now? So what are you seeing season to season in your land and soil that you basically depend on?
I think the main difficulties is the late frost, very unpredictable. Also the rain. Some years I mean, it's not new for generations now. There's been a different kind of rain of quantities, but they are scattering now, so it's pretty hard to manage. And where I live, the price of the water has doubled this year from June to October. So, and it involves everyone. So that impacts directly the price of the products. I also face difficulties with the winds. Now we have very strong winds, more frequent. Before there really wasn't that kind of wind. And when I talk to my neighbors or the old one around, everyone agrees with this violent winds from the south. So every year I have problems with the greenhouse, the cover of the greenhouse. 3 times last year, everything got away. So the wind, and maybe during the summer, when the water is being less and less there, you also have the trees that can lose all the leaves and the fruits that can abort. So everything just fall down. And another example, this year I had absolutely no grape because there's the Asian hornet. There's a beekeeper who put her bees in my field, and it's just destroying everything. The bees themselves, but also many fruits and products.
So more resilient because you have
because diverse.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how about you, Mark? Because you also have a lot of different species you work on, but also you're in a unique position because you're a farmer, but you also work on risk and insurance. When you face such trends, how do you approach making it sustainable for yourself as a farmer as well? So keeping those invisible ingredients going year after year.
I think if I start maybe from the more with the farmer hat and the farmer's perspective, I think I really agree with what you just said. There are like a lot of challenges, and we also see on the farm we have field crops. So basically what you imagine like a big field that you manage with a tractor, and also more specialty crops. And I think the risk they're completely different. Field crops, they would be more exposed to drought and extreme rain events, whereas like the specialty crops, they tend to be irrigated. So drought is not really an issue. It's just a cost thing, because then you have more cost, as you explain. But
For
the fact,
now.
yeah.
And I mean, for now there is water.
For now, yeah, of course. But I think from what we see, like there will be water for specialty crops still quite a bit. But for the field crop, like the corn and this kind of stuff, it's going to be more tricky. And they will be maybe irrigation ban or this kind of things because there is just not enough water. But we will start with the low value crop. So what you produce is high value crop. We also have some high value crop, and they are the last one we will cut. So I think it will affect first not a farm like you, the bans, or maybe in your region in the Jura it's quite dry, so it's different. That's also the thing. I think risks are quite specific to crop and location, and we cannot just say okay, it's this risk that will affect us. And of course, if you have a more diverse farm, you're more resilient. But it also has a cost to be diverse. It's not like it's more difficult than to mechanize your operation and to do this. So it's not diversity is not something that comes for free for a farmer, but it's still a way that I think is definitely worth it. And maybe now taking the insurance hat, I think to make a very concrete example, one that we see a lot is when the organic matter in your soil start to decrease. So organic matter is all the dead leaves, if you put manure and this kind of stuff that accumulate in the soil, then your soil will act less as a sponge. And this is something that is well studied and that we know. And if the soil acts less as a sponge, it will be more exposed to extreme event. And then an extreme rain event or a drought will have its effect that is stronger. So basically what we observe now is that if we're using practices that is reducing organic matter in the soil, progressively the losses of the crop is higher. And but it's one part of the equation, because losing the crops because the soil was not able to cope with this heavy rain or with the drought is one thing, but it also affects the rivers and then the potential floods in some cities. It can decuplate the effect of those floods and also increase the effect of the drought. So all those stuff are linked.
Almost.
Yeah, I mean the cycle is more that if you lose organic matter in your soil, you're less resilient to climate extreme. But by losing organic matter, you also emit CO2, and then you also increase climate change, which in turn will then again increase the climatic events, and then you're a bit stuck in that loop. And it is then it really makes sense, I mean, to try to stop this and have practices that would be able to keep the soil organic matter to a decent level. And this is something that we really see concretely in our day-to-day job, that climate change is increasing, but also resilience is almost going down because of this. We conducted recently a study to model what will happen by 2050 if we continue with, let's say, conventional practices, or if we try to adopt some more sustainable regenerative practices, such as using organic matter, cover crops, reducing the tillage. And what we observe is that if we continue like we do now, because of climate change, because of decrease of soil organic matter combined, we will lose yield. We come to around 15% compared to now on wheat in northern France. But if you change practices, then you would be able kind of to maintain it to the current level. So in essence, like changing practices on the long run will be worth it. It will reduce the risk and stabilize the yield at a higher level. So it's an investment. We need to do it now that will pay off on the long run. So, but that's how we see this. It's often said that subsidies or eco schemes are a cost, but I don't think it's true. The true cost is the impact that agriculture is having on our environment. And it's not like I don't say agriculture is bad, and so it's just natural. If you want to grow food for people, you're going to have an impact on your environment. And then the question is, how can we produce the food we need at the minimal cost? And by cost, we mean societal cost. And we have two options, basically. The first option, we let the free market regulate this. And what will happen? Farmer, they will optimize their own cost, so the diesel for the tractor, but not the environmental cost, because they're not paying for environmental cost. So it's basically what the economists, they call externalities, and it's a so-called market failure. And when you have this, basically the food we produce is not at the lowest cost possible. So we pay the society too much for the food. And option two is that the state adjusts the market with restriction or with subsidies to have an efficient market again. And then overall, if we do this, we'll have a cheaper cost of food. So I think it's pretty clear that subsidies are not a cost, it's a way to reduce cost from a societal point of view. And I think it's very difficult to argue against this. We can argue if the current scheme are well set up, if the current scheme distribute the money well, if they're distribute to the right thing, if they're not too heavy administratively and so on. But we cannot argue that subsidy is a way to reduce cost and not the cost itself. From a societal point of view, this is a tool that makes sense because it's clear we're in presence of externalities and we need to solve this if we want to save money.
What about for the public, Annelies? If farmers face more climate hits and they might not be able to adapt because of all the dynamics we talked about, are we talking about higher prices at the tilt, or more taxes, or more empty shelves? What does that look like?
Yeah, I actually think that your example of the coffee and the cocoa was a really good one that we have seen recently. I mean, we've all seen that now if we go to have a coffee before our work or I don't know where, that the price of our coffee is higher than what it used to be. And the reason that the price is higher is because, there were harvests that were not so well, or were much less, there was much less cacao beans, much less coffee beans, and that the reason for that was, of course, climate change. But the second reason for that was really the fact that the farmers didn't have the means to mitigate the problems that were coming. And there you have a really big risk, which is at this moment very often very much on the linked to the farmer and not to the rest of the supply chain. And there, cacao and coffee are crops from mostly outside Europe, but the same is happening with farms in Europe, where our daily fruits and vegetables will also become more expensive when climate continues to change.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. I actually want to get a sense of the room here when it comes to CAP, because it's one of, I think, the oldest EU policy, CAP, and it's probably one of the most debated one of the most controversial ones, maybe. But so let's see what you think of it as it currently stands. To simplify your opinion on it, on this huge policy, long and huge
Very
policy, we prepared some hashtags that might sum up your opinion on it. So I'll maybe mention a couple of them and feel free to choose, or feel free to create your own hashtag. You don't have to stick to the ones here. We've all heard some people saying about CAP. Hashtag, nah. This has been said a lot about CAP, or more on the optimistic, but maybe also sarcastic side. Hashtag, never lose hope. It'll happen one day.
Okay.
Oldest policy, old schooled, not cool. Some say it's too big to change. Some say we need to fix the recipe. And this is probably what I would choose, my personal favorite. I prefer Taylor Swift. So please feel free to choose, or you could just create your own hashtag. You don't have to stick to what we have here.
Yeah.
That's very clear.
You're all going for the same one. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's it for you as well, Mark.
But I think I cannot take a position which direction or exactly how the CAP should be shaped. But what is sure is that the CAP can have an effect, a huge effect. I mean, we've seen in France, there was this study by the Shift Project, and they say 90% of the farmer wants to change practices, but 85 say they don't get enough money to change practices. So it's not like they are the blockers. Is if we provide them the right condition, it will move. You know, in Switzerland, we have a different system where eco-schemes are pretty strong. And in 2023, there was a new scheme coming from short cover crops. So cover crop in summer, for example, between rapeseed and wheat. And in 1 year, I think the landscape in Switzerland completely changed. If you would come 1 year before in September, then there will be a lot of bare soil because farmer wouldn't seed a cover crop in summer because it's too short. They seed in winter, like in whole Europe, but not in summer. And now in September, like all fields, they have like some cover crops growing on it. So those schemes, they do work, and it's possible to make them work. And I don't know if now how it is designed, it's not working. I'm not in the right position to judge, but it's possible to make it work, and it's possible to have an impact, I think. And this is why I think this one is a good.
So you chose.
Good one.
This is why you chose.
Yeah.
Fix the recipe.
I don't know if it needs to be fixed, but with this tool, we can have a recipe that works.
Yeah.
And how about you?
Yeah,
Audrey? You
I
chose
also agree.
this one. You didn't choose prefer Taylor Swift.
No, I think CAP is so much important. It's such a great idea, a great thing. So just need to adapt a bit and to keep the budget.
Yes. How about you?
Yeah, I find it a difficult question, and also difficult to reply to this in a very well-structured way, maybe.
Yeah.
But what I do really believe is that there is a need for some legal regulation or a way to make sure that the price for the food that we pay today, that to have a fair price for it. Every actor in the sector needs to play their role. And you can only do that if you have a Europe who says, here are rules that we have to follow. And there have been special rules about deforestation, about corporate sustainability. And these are under debate at this moment. And this is, of course, I'm in favor of more regulation to make sure that everyone is made responsible, maybe. And I just think there's a minimum, and the minimum is that that food is available for everyone, and that every actor in the sector, from the farmer to the seller to the processor, everyone pays an equal price, not an equal price, but pays a price for the hidden costs of the food.
When we talk about everyone needs to do their own fair share, how about specifically supermarkets, food companies, retailers? How do they do their bit in practice?
Well, we at Ricolto, we work very much on this supply chain, and we try. Well, we call it inclusive business models that we try to put in place. And what we see, or what we have seen already, is that these models can work. What does it mean, an inclusive business model? It's a bit like a marriage, let's say. It's big bits of work. Nothing goes smoothly from the start. We have to work together to make it good. And that's what you see with inclusive business models as well, except that the love in the beginning is maybe not there between every actor of the supply chain. But it's really about building long-term relationships, building trust between everyone around the table, finding a common language, which makes it possible to make long-term investments and to reduce the risks of climate change, for instance. So supermarkets play a big role in on that table. They're also one of the partners around the table that really need to take responsibility too. What we do with this inclusive business, that's a big work, and what you see is you get results, but it is on a voluntary basis, and that's it's nice when companies take the risk and do so, but that's when Europe can come in, because when you have legislation around how to make everyone in the chain responsible, then you can move forward, and then you protect your farmers as well in the way they work.
I think that's a very important note to end on, and leave all of those questions with the decision makers who are working on CAP today. Thank you so much for having this conversation and your brilliant points.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Inviting us.
Of course. So, what have we heard today? Farmers want to protect nature, but they can't do it alone. The support that could make it possible is under threat. And when that support disappears, risks grow for farmers, for insurers, and for all of us as consumers. The choice isn't green versus food. The real choice is whether we pay now for resilience, healthy soil, thriving nature, or whether we pay much later in disaster bills, farm exits, and higher food prices. The cap is Europe's food budget. The question is, what will it buy? Short-term subsidies or a food system that can actually survive the next crisis? And that's where you come in. The next cap will shape what ends up on our plates for years to come. So follow the debate. Ask your representatives how they're voting. And don't let resilience be written out of the recipe. Thank you so much for tuning into this conversation, and stay tuned and follow WWF as they keep following the fight for food, farmers, and nature in Europe. See you soon.